Many people believe that Jeimer Candelario was going to be the best position player available at the 2023 trade deadline, and the Washington Nationals have officially pulled the trigger and traded him to the Chicago Cubs, where he started his career after he was drafted by them and then came up with them and before being shipped away in the Alex Avila Justin Wilson trade in 2017. He's back where it all began for him in his professional career, going back to Chicago as Jeimer Candelario in his last year of a deal is trying to fit into the third base role that has been somewhat of a revolving door for the Chicago Cubs this year. He's only a rental who's making $5 million, so the Cubs are only going to have his services until he hits free agency this offseason, but he is going to help a team that is really trying to go ahead and make the playoffs and make a little bit of a push to make some magic happen in October. He hasn't had a phenomenal year, but he's been solid. He's currently slashing 258, 342, 418, which yields him a 823 OPS, and compared to league average, that's 28% better than a league average hitter, which gives you a 128 OPS plus. So he's been a solid hitter. He is going back to where he started his professional career, which is always a nice little story. And the Cubs could really use the third base help. So this is going to be a significant push to get what is likely the best player who does not pitch available at the deadline for a team that is really trying to push for a really weak division crown. The Cubs ended up getting two players in this deal. The first one is Kevin Made, a 20-year-old shortstop who's currently playing in high A advanced ball. He signed out of the Dominican Republic in July 2019 for $1.5 million, but he wasn't able to make his debut stateside until 2021, and that was due to the coronavirus pandemic. Some scouts believe that he has the highest upside in all of the Cubs system and could become an everyday all-star caliber shortstop should he mature. Again, he's 20, very young, and he doesn't have a ton of experience in professional baseball. He only played 158 games for the Cubs minor league affiliates between 2021 and 2022 due to injury of his elbow and hamstring. So he's very raw, and international prospects always have a very high level of variance. So we're not really sure exactly where he's going to end up. You could say that about any prospect, but he has the potential to really blow up and be a big-time thing should he mature and develop into a player the Washington Nationals want him to be. Although he's not going to be a guy you expect to hit for about league average every year, he does have really good bat-to-ball skills and a very quick stroke throughout the zone, so he does have the ability to go and be at least a decent hitter. He's not going to win you a batting title, he's not really going to get close, but he will make enough contact to make a difference in the game. He has above average speed. It's nothing to go and be super excited about, but he could beat out a throw from the corner of third base to first. But don't expect him to beat you with his legs. He's not going to be a guy who's going to be touted for his speed like an Esteury Ruiz type. He'll be a good player. He'll be able to use his speed effectively, but he's not going to steal a ton of bags. And it's not going to be something that when you listen to a broadcast, they're going to talk about his speed. What they will talk about is his defense. He has one of the best arms in all of minor league baseball, and that pairs well with the fact that he has really elite range covering shortstop at well. There's no doubt that he will stick at shortstop in the long term as his defense is phenomenal, and that's something that really goes and sets him apart from other prospects. It also makes up for some of his shortcomings offensively. You think of someone like Andrelton Simmons. He was an outstanding defender, but he never had a ton of great offensive seasons. I'm not saying Kevin Made is going to be as amazing of a defender as Andrelton Simmons, who might be one of the best shortstops of our generation on the defensive side of the ball. Go look at his metrics if you don't believe me. But he's going to be a very good shortstop. Might win a Gold Glove or two here or there. And his offensive ability isn't going to go and be a negative asset to a team. It just won't be a overwhelmingly positive one. And that's fine. Shortstop is one of the harder defensive positions to play. So even though the offensive production is a little lacking, having a defensive-minded shortstop is something that any team would say yes to. Shortstop is such a hard position to play that if you have a good defender there, you can keep him there. And Kevin Made, it might just make the big league solely off his defense. It's worth a shot to see if he makes it, and I think he has a pretty high upside to at least get the call-up at some point in his career, even if he doesn't hit well in the minor leagues. And at the very least, he could be a utility guy who plays 50, 60 games a year. That might be his floor in terms of realistic outcomes. He obviously could end up not making the big leagues at all. A lot of international prospects don't. But if he does, I think that's a safe floor to shoot for. Someone who could be a utility guy, fill in when needed, and he could play anywhere on the diamond at that point. His range at shortstop and arm are incredible, but if you need him at second base, you need him at right field. Center field, probably not. There's a chance, but you could put him at either the corner outfield spots, third base, and he'd be a great fit. He's becoming more comfortable at the plate too. He had his walk rate jump from 2.5% to 10% between 2021 and 2023. So he's definitely getting better at identifying pitches, not swinging it off speed stuff, and working the count, which is a huge skill to have. If he can develop that, he's going to be a very good player. He does have to be protected for the Rule 5 draft coming up this offseason, so he should be added to the Washington Nationals 40-man roster this offseason. He's not going to make his debut then. I don't see him making his debut in 2025 either, maybe towards the end of it. I think 2026 is really when you're going to see him potentially make the major leagues and make an impact at that level. He has a lot of time to go and develop and refine his skills. He's going to have those 3 option years as well. He's going to use at least 2 of them. So if I'm a Nationals fan, I have to understand that this guy is not going to play for my team right away. He has the potential to be really good, but he's not someone who's going to be in a Nationals uniform in 2024. And that's fine. That doesn't really fit their timeline. But just for National fans, be ready. He's not going to go ahead and play for your team anytime soon. Before I talk about the second player, please go ahead, and if you like this kind of content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button in that top right corner. It really means a lot to help a channel like mine grow and talk about baseball, which is a passion of mine and hopefully a passion of yours. While you're doing that, feel free to leave a comment or drop a like on the video. It really helps out a lot. Without further ado, we're now going to talk about Herz, a 22-year-old left-handed pitcher currently in AAA, who is the second player the Nationals acquired. He was an 8th round pick in the 2019 draft by the Chicago Cubs, and they signed him away for $500,000, which is about what you'd see a 4th round pick make, to go ahead and forgo his commitment to the University of North Carolina and end up going professional. He has a very exaggerated crossbody delivery, as you can see in the video, and that really helps deception. Left-handed hitters have a very hard time going and hitting against him. A comparison to this, not exactly, is Chris Sale. Look at Chris Sale pitch. Lefties have a very hard time seeing the ball because the ball literally comes out behind him just based on how crossbody that delivery is. He ended up getting the call to go up to AA at the end of 2022, and he got absolutely rocked. It's expected. A lot of people believe the jump from single A or high A to AA is the hardest in the minor leagues, only rivaled by the jump from AAA to the major leagues. So it's somewhat expected, and I wouldn't be overly concerned about the fact he didn't have great numbers in 2022. As this year in 2023, he's rectified that. He's been much better. His ERA is just south of 4 at a 3.97. He's also striked out 12.2 batters per 9 innings, which is really, really good, especially for someone who's starting. And he's pitched to a 3.85 FIP, which is definitely respectable, especially in AA when you're only 22. The Cubs did a lot of legwork to go and develop him into the prospect he is today. In high school, Hertz never used his changeup. The Cubs saw that it had a lot of potential and really encouraged him to use it, and now it's developed into one of the best changeups in all of the minor leagues, and some people think one of the best pitches in all of minor league baseball. This is the kind of pitch you see when he makes a major league in the dark red on Baseball Savant. Dark red's good in Baseball Savant, so red is not bad. But it's an amazing pitch. He is an elite changeup artist, and that's really made a big difference in his game. He also had a curveball, but once he reached AA last year, it started getting hit around a lot. So the Cubs worked with him to develop a slider, which isn't a great pitch by any means, but it's serviceable and it gets the job done a lot better than his curveball did, as it comes out of his arm slot a lot more naturally, and it pairs really well with his fastball and with his changeup. Most scouts think he's destined to end in the bullpen. I think the Nationals are going to give him a shot in the rotation, but his control issues are really, really bad. He has that devastating changeup and a pretty solid fastball, topped at around 96 miles an hour, and he'll probably add a little bit of velocity to that but again, the real issue here is control. So far this year, he's walked 14% of all batters, which is good for a 5.64 walks per 9, which is absolutely atrocious. A decent pitcher has maybe a walk per 9 of 2. So he's really not controlling the ball and throwing strikes when he needs to. Because of that, when you have a starter who has a good pitch mix but just can't put together, a lot of times they end up destined for the bullpen. But when you have someone with this kind of potential, if you can fix that control issue, you're going to have a very, very, very good starter. And there's no doubt that the Nationals have that in mind. With that being said, having someone who, if it doesn't work out as a starter, is going to slide into a bullpen role with an already devastating pitch and can now focus on increasing velocity, maybe you end up completely eliminating the curveball, and they can focus on their 3-pitch mix. I think Hertz has the ability to be a great setup man or a closer, and that's something that's super valuable for a team. If you have someone who has that upside but also has a relatively low floor compared to it, it's going to be okay. He needs to lower those walk rates, as I said. That'll come with time. He does need to be added to the 40-man this offseason to be protected from the Rule 5 draft, and I see that happening. I don't foresee the Nationals not protecting either Hertz or Made, but he does need a little bit more time to develop. I could see him coming up maybe middle or end of 2024, potentially as a spring training invitee turned into a starter in 2025. Only time will tell what that actual path will be, but for right now, he fits in line with what should be the projected time frame for the Washington Nationals rebuild, potentially being good in 2026 area. By that point, he should have some major league innings under his belt and be a serviceable player. He needs to get this control issue under wraps, though. If not, there's no chance he's going to stay as a starter, and the odds of him sticking as a high leverage reliever are going to be low if he keeps walking 5 batters per 9 inning. I think the Cubs end up with a B grade for this trade. They have a decent amount of infield depth if you look at what they have, but third base was definitely their weakest. Right now they have Dick Madrigal playing every day, and although I absolutely love Madrigal coming out of Oregon State in college, he is not the player people thought he was going to end up being, and shouldn't be your everyday third baseman. You also look at first base. Although Cody Bellinger has it covered, Trey Mancini hasn't been great this year, so it's great to have another first baseman to go ahead and sub for him. And to go and have Patrick Wisdom or Miles Mastrobroni as your backup third baseman isn't going to cut it on a playoff contending team. I think this addition is great. It's nothing over the edge. They gave up some decent prospects for it, and I think this is going to be something that really pushes them over the edge. They have to make a couple more moves in order to really go and make a successful playoff push, in my opinion. They can do that, but they have to go ahead and make those moves, and with only a day left, I really hope that comes to fruition for Cubs fans. The Nationals made out well, which is why I think they deserve an A for this trade. They were in a very interesting spot with Candelario, as everyone knew they were going to trade him. It didn't make any sense to keep him, and in a very weak, the Nationals were still able to get a good return for what is likely to be the best position player traded at the deadline. I think Kevin Made is someone who really fits into what the Nationals want to do. He's someone who has a very high ceiling, and although the floor is pretty low, as with all international prospects, and he has to be added to the 40-man after this year, the Washington Nationals are probably the team best suited to go ahead and do that. They don't have a ton of talent ready to be fluxed into the major leagues right now, so the Washington Nationals targeting a couple players who are farther away is really a good thing. I think Herz is also in that same mold, someone who has a lot of potential, but might end up being nothing. And if this is what they get for Jeimer Candelario, someone they basically got for nothing this offseason, I think Washington National fans should be very, very happy. In the long run, going from when the Nationals acquired him to now, this has to be an A+, but based solely on the trade, they could have gotten maybe a little bit more, in my opinion, but this is definitely not a return to scoff at all. Again, if you like this kind of content, go ahead and drop a like and hit that subscribe button. It really helps a lot, and it makes it easier for you to interact with more videos just like mine, whether it's from my channel or not. Thank you again for watching. I really appreciate it, and stay tuned for more breakdowns of the 2023 trade deadline.